Well, welcome to the podcast today. My name is Jeff, and I'll be your host. And today, our guest is Yaakov Billig. Yaakov has worked as an archaeologist at the Israel Antiquities Authority for 34 years, mostly on excavations in Jerusalem, including the excavation at Robinson's Arch at the southwest corner of the temple. He holds a master's degree from Bar Ilan University and is currently finishing his PhD on the Herodian Temple Mount. Welcome to the podcast, Yaakov.
Hi. Nice to meet you all.
Well, it's great to have you with us. And tell us about this 2,700-year-old toilet that has been discovered. Where was it discovered and how? Give us some of the rundown on that.
The site excavated is about 2 kilometers south of the old city, south of the Temple Mount, but on the hilltop overlooking. It's very strategic. It's a prominent hilltop. At a certain point, I discovered a beautiful capital made of stone. It is a type called the Proto-Aeolic type. It's a design, it's a prototype, which is earlier by several centuries than the classic Greek orders. Now, until now, those that were discovered were massive stones. They were about 1 meter long. They believed to have been like top stones above doorposts or on top of pilasters, which were very large in some monumental structure like a palace. Now we found a small stone, also shaped like a capital, but miniature. I could hold it on the palm of my hand. We found over a dozen of the small ones and 3 complete, beautiful, medium-sized ones, which are 1/2 meter long. The beautiful 1/2 meter long, medium-sized ones were probably capping pillars, not big pillars like you have in the big temples of the later Greek and Greek orders, but in this case, they were probably on the porch or around a courtyard of a beautiful villa. Again, we're back in the Judean Kingdom in the Iron Age, 700 BCE. Those are the 3 intact ones, the medium-sized ones, and the small ones we could reconstructed with a few other fragments because we had these tiny pillars, which we call balusters of a balustrade. And we also have window frames. So we can reconstruct a whole window frame with a recession from the outside going inwards in a few steps. And then the sill had capitals and balusters, like little pillars supporting them. Beautiful design, the most beautiful of their type ever found in the country until now. It was obvious that we're dealing here with a royal estate. This is something that only the top, maybe the king himself had maybe his summer or winter mansion out on that hilltop. Maybe it was one of the princes. And then one day we found a stone, a beautifully carved stone block with a hole going through it from top to bottom. Now, it is not the first one of its kind found, but it is very, very rare. About 6 have been found up to date in the city of David in ancient biblical Jerusalem. 2 others nearby at Ramat Rahel, not at the site itself, but a fortress right nearby it. And there's another one in the major city of Lachish in the southern part of Judea. It is obvious also by its position in our dig that it is sitting on top of a cess pit. In other words, there's a carved pit measuring about 2 meters by 1.5 meters, and it's full of, how should I describe it? It has its fill inside. It doesn't stink anymore, but it was obviously a toilet.
In ancient Jerusalem, 2,700 years ago, were these toilets common? Who usually had them in their homes?
They're very rare. You can count them on your fingers until now. In this case, this is maybe the second instance in Jerusalem that was found in situ, on top of the pit into which people disposed of what they had to dispose. Something which is really personal. My father passed away a few years ago, and he's a Holocaust survivor. He grew up in Germany, in a city called Karlsruhe. And Germany, in the first half of the 20th century, was very modern, developed, and modernized. So they had running water, they had toilet system, sewage system. A lot of things were very progressive. And they had other issues which were not very positive, I'd put it gently. In any case, in the course of the war, my father and his parents were refugees, and they had to escape from Germany through Switzerland, an Italian village in Switzerland, and then they reached a small village called Novelli, not far from the city of Aquila in the Abruzzo region. And I'd like to read to you briefly things that he wrote. This is around 9 villages in the Abruzzi. It was extremely primitive. No toilets, no running water. The house we lived in was relatively new, built by an Italian from Novelli who spent many years as a factory worker in the States and saved every penny which he sent to his family in Novelli. So when he built his house, he included a cistern which collected all the rainwater that fell on the roof during rains. Most other people had to go to the nearest public fountain and fill up a gigantic copper vessel called kanka, and the women carried it on their heads to their homes. This was strictly a woman's job. Sanitary installations were non-existent. Our home was built against the hill and was freestanding. The hills in the area were full of natural caves. Whoever was able climbed to the nearest, most convenient cave near their house and there relieved themselves. Whoever could not used the potty and emptied it or onto the hill or out of the window, summer, winter, rain and snow and shine. That's what just about everyone did throughout history for a long, long time, all around the world, except for the very, very rich people who had their own royal flush. 1,000 years, 1,000 years after this royal toilet, there's a debate among the rabbis in the Talmud. How do you define a rich person? And there was Rabbi Yossi who said someone who has a toilet next to his table is a rich person. That is definitely rare. Only a rich man could afford to have such an installation in his home, so he wouldn't have to be under pressure, put it that way, how he would have to go out and do what he has to do.
Thanks for watching. You can listen to this entire podcast on your favorite audio podcast platform. Find the link below. And while you're at it, don't forget to click subscribe and follow us on Facebook so you can stay connected to First Century Foundations.